Okay, so we're sitting here with Monica Prescott. She is an artist from LEDUC, Alberta, originally not from here. Do you want to tell us a little bit of where you're actually from?
Born in the Midwest US, Indiana, moved to Fort McMurray, Alberta when I was a kid, and Fort McMurray was home for me. I felt more rooted in Fort McMurray than what I actually ever did in the States. And so moved back to the States, finished high school, moved back to Canada after high school. Been in Canada now longer than what I have ever lived in the States, and I'm much more Canadian in my heart than American in my roots. I know.
Are you allowed to say that?
I am allowed. Even my dad said that. Last time I was down there, we were having a conversation about something. He goes, "You sound Canadian." And I'm like, I am Canadian. Canadians are a lot more raw, a lot more liberal in our thinking. Even our conservatives are way more liberal than the liberals in the US. And so it's just, my thinking would be a lot more progressive, I think, than a lot of states. But yeah.
Do you feel like that pours into your thoughts as an artist?
Very much so. I think it's like when it comes to art, you're always trying to envision what's not there. And I think that's with progressive thinking. You're thinking about things that aren't yet there. It's progressive. It's like you're thinking forward to, this is where we're headed, what could be, what we're aiming for. And I think there's a lot of that would maybe translate over into art, because especially when it comes to the type of art that I like doing, like abstracts, it's kind of like you're not really copying anything like a realist, when you're painting or drawing realism, like trying to get as close to the real thing as you can, versus abstracts, it's just kind of like blah, like shapes and colors and feeling and stuff. You're looking at things you're trying to get a vision for, or trying to put something down on canvas or paper, whatever you're working on, that you don't really see. So it's more of a forward thinking. So yeah. I think it would be.
Do you feel like being creative, was that something that was encouraged when you were
Absolutely.
younger?
I still have the picture. So when we grew up, my sister was a year and a half younger than I was. She was always the one. I remember going in the back of my head thinking, she was always the one she drew a lot more when we were kids. She was always the one. I remember very distinctly, she was the artist, we called the artist, and she was like the little artist in the family, and she's still to this day phenomenal. Like paintings and drawings that she do, very realistic, like very skilled that way. And then when I hit kindergarten, we had to draw this picture. I still have it downstairs. It's so funny.
Amazing.
It's a picture. It was Pussy Willows, and it was like I remember I had to draw it, and I remember doing a lot of, putting a lot of time, took my time on it, lots of shading, and I was so excited because the Crayola crayon box that I used, had silver and metallics, and I love it.
Fancy one.
And I brought it home, and my mom was floored. She's like, oh my gosh. So she decoupaged it, because the I know, nice. I put it on a big board, so it's on this huge, and then she was like, and I think that's kind of what triggers, I can kind of do something. I kind of got skills, but I never, Jen was always much more, she would kind of do it on her own, and I'd kind of dabble in it, and I'm like, I don't like that, I like that. And I think maybe it was in grade 6, I won a contest. It was in Fort McMurray. It was a poster contest for something, and I remember winning it. I'm like, oh, okay, I think I can do this. So I think it was just little things along the way, and then it was when I got into high school, where I could take, and school was a lot different then, where we had to pick a major. So you had to graduate with English and math, all through high school, all 4 years. And then you could pick a major. You could do science, you could do shop, you could do business, you could do art. So I picked art and business. And so all through high school, most of my days I did lots of art. And that's where and I do it on the side, and I'd love to do it. And the work that I did then was very detailed, because it was very much more realistic. And so I would always take stuff and work it on home and work at it when I had free time. So I was working on one project a lot longer, maybe for months, to get it just right. And so I think that's kind of where it started. But then when moved back to Canada, I did one picture when I was nannying. Again, it took me probably 3 to 5 months I was working on it, because it was a big picture and it was very realistic, but it was pointillism, dot, 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 lots of dots. And so that just took a lot of time. So I didn't really have, I was mobile. I had no place to really call my own. So it's I'm not going to set up painting anywhere. And I would do watercolors. I love doing watercolors because, again, it was cheap. It was paper, and if I didn't like it, I could chuck it, and I didn't feel bad about it. And so I did that a lot, and I did that a lot, mostly in school. So when it came to painting, I would do watercolors, and I would do like painting, like, or ink drawings. And but then when I ended up in Bible school and then life, so I had like no roots, no time, and I probably didn't do anything for, oh good grief, how many years? Well, at least 12 years, maybe 13 years. I didn't really do any painting, probably. Yeah, I didn't do anything. And then when I started up again, I didn't even know what it was. I was just like, I think I want to try painting again. And it was over at their house, and the basement wasn't finished, so I didn't feel bad about just picking a corner, and the carpet was crap anyway, so I just put like a drop sheet down, and I started doing some, I had some ideas for pictures. Like, I think maybe I want to just try something abstract, and again, we didn't have money to buy like a real paint, so I just would use leftover house paint that Mike had from jobs, and that's what I did. And I started experimenting with like textures, so like tub caulking, and just use that and paint over it. It's like, I kind of like this, and so I did that, and just sold a few of them, and then it just, another full season. It was a lot of different things going on. I just didn't paint for a couple of years, and then we moved into here. I just didn't have a space. Yeah. So it was probably about another 5 years. 3 to 5 years, I didn't really do anything. And 3 or 4 years ago, I got my little space upstairs. And then I was just more motivated to do it, because I was never get motivated. It was like, I don't want to set all this up and then go clean it up and come back, and so I could leave it set up there, and so that really helped. Then I could kind of get into a role. And
so you're also a mom. Do you find that your kids have had kind of grown in seeing you being creative and it's spilled into their life, or do you feel
yes, but yes, I wish I would have. Kaylin definitely, both of them do. Kaylin's got an eye to see. I think if he would have taken art, like I begged him to, I begged both the kids, simply because there's a lot that I knew she taught, the art teacher at the time. I knew that the method that she taught was, it actually teaches your brain how to think and see and perceive things that have nothing to do with art. It's just a really good skill. And so I begged both of them. Kaylin didn't, Samara did. And she did great. Like, she turned out awesome stuff. Kaylin would do these little sketches, and he did, and they were really good. Like, they were really rough, but he would do these little funky little sheep. He was just kind of in that, I don't know, I don't want to do it. And it's one of the things I regret not really doing more with them.
So where does your inspiration come from?
Other abstract artists. I love looking on Pinterest, and there's certain artists that I really like, and I get ideas. So if I ever feel stuck, like if I've got canvas up there that are blank that I'm waiting, it's like, what am I going to do with this? Like, I have a whole bunch of boards, like I collect pictures. I like that one on my Pinterest boards and stuff. So what I do when I feel like it's almost like priming the pump, I just start flipping through, and I'll look at other abstracts that, I like this, I like their composition, or I like their palette, or I like, that's a cool technique. And it just kind of gets me going. It's like, okay, now I know what I do. So I might start with, okay, I like how this composition, I kind of get like darks and lights and, size and shape, and then then it takes off on its own. But that's where I get lost. Like, if we go to museums, like even when it wasn't like the stuff that I do, like we would be, Mike and I have gone to museums, like I'm taking pictures, not supposed to, but you're taking pictures of everything.
Shoot, this is recorded.
You're taking pictures of everything, and I'm like, this one, I'm just like in awe. I'm staring at this statue, like in awe of it, and like Mike's already completed the whole wing. He's like, I'm ready to go, and I'm like, honey, and he's like already gone through, and he's come back, and I'm like, I'm just getting started, so I can't go with him in museums anymore. I didn't do a lot, but I love, like, when I've been in LA or New York, I like going to the Museum of Modern Art. It always astounds me. It's just like, that's scribbles, but it's really cool. I don't know why it's really cool, but I like it. Like, so I think that's where the inspiration comes. Yeah. Most of the time. Sometimes I'll get like a picture, or more like, it's not like a full-on picture, it's more like composition in my head. It's like, well, that's a kind of a cool thing I see. I don't know how I see it, but I'll try to scribble it and use it later, but those don't usually pan out very well.
You don't know until you try.
Yeah, I know. So I try that. Yeah, not a good idea. No. Looked good in my head, doesn't look good on the canvas.
What's your process for fixing mistakes?
Water, if it's not very old. So I put lots of water on and rub like crazy. There was one that was like layers. I was trying to scrape it off and I actually scraped a hole in it. I'm like,
no.
Oh yeah. I was like, oh. What I do is painted over it with really thick paint.
You charge extra and you pretend it was supposed to be there.
It was supposed to be there. I fixed that one. For mistakes, sometimes it is the one thing about acrylics that's great because it's water soluble, it dries quick, which is another thing why I loved acrylics, because it's oils, I can't handle the smell. I don't like solvent, all that. Just, it takes too long. And so acrylics dries quick. So it's just like, I'll wait a day or even a couple hours, depending on how bad the mistake is, and just paint over it. Like this one right there was like, the whole thing was a mistake. But it's like, now it's my favorite painting. But it was like one mistake. And it's just, and after a while you get to a place where it's just, oh, this is, who cares? You just kind of mess around with it. And it's like, oh, I'll try this. And it's kind of, you get to the place of, I don't care. Let's just kind of fiddle around with it and kind of try this. And then it's just like, oh, I really like this. Okay. And then to try to reproduce that, I couldn't if I tried.
Yeah.
So the process to fix mistakes, paint over them, try to work them in. Sometimes the mistake ends up turning into be something, with a little bit of water. It's like, oh, that's actually kind of cool. I like that effect. So there's the unpredictability of the paint and water. And I think that's what I like most about painting. I think there's the whole process is very much, there's a lot about redemption in it and about redeeming, because it's like, no matter how ugly or how bad or how messed up it is, it's pretty well always fixable. Yeah. Like even if it's a complete restart where it's just like, okay, painting over this, it's all going white again and we're starting all over, or a section of it, like there's some that, and it's with layers, and sometimes the actual texture that comes through with the different layers from the mistakes actually gives the cool factor to the painting, I think. Yeah. Makes it look,
adds more character.
It does. It adds character and it kind of pulls you in. It's just like, what's underneath that? Yeah. I'm going to touch it. I'm very much about texture. And so, like, I love, because you can't do it when you go to galleries, but it's just like, I just want to touch it. I just want to feel it. Yeah. And so that's where it's kind of like, it kind of pulls you. It's like, oh, what does that feel like? Don't touch it.
Yeah. The emotions that you have when you're going into the room to paint, do you already kind of know ahead of time what that paint is going to turn out looking like? Or, like, can you see the differences between your paintings, knowing what you went into that room feeling like?
That's always really different, I think, the end result is. Like, a lot of times I go in, it's kind of like, I have no idea. It's more the unexpected. So it's like, I've got an idea where I want to go, but then it's the unexpected of where it actually ends up going based on what the paint does or based on what I see in my head, and I'm not able to translate onto the canvas. It's like, it's still not working out, or it's like, that's not what I thought I was going to do. So I was like, let's just go with it anyway. And then it goes in a completely different direction. So I get excited. I always try to leave a piece or leave ones that I'm working on in a place where I like where it's at. So it's a motivation to get back to doing it. If I leave it at a place where I don't like it, even if it's not finished, it's like, I don't like where I left it. I'm never motivated to go back and try to fix it. Partly because I don't want to work on it. I hated it. Like, that's kind of what it is. It's like, I didn't like what it looked like. I don't want to go back and try to fix it. So when I go in, I'm excited. It's like, oh, it's a fresh canvas. At the same time, it's a little bit, I don't know, what am I going to do? And so there's always that. It's always been that, whether I was drawing or painting, it's the blank canvas is a horrible experience. You just like, sometimes you just got to start slopping paint on. So that's what I've started doing now, is more just doing, I'm just going to put a base on this, just put something on just to get started. And then it's less intimidating to know where to go from there.
What do you want to do with your creative side? Like, where would you like to head with your painting?
Oh my gosh. It was a book that I recently read by a really N.T. Wright. He's like a modern day theologian. He was talking about like God's kingdom, and he's just got a really different perspective on what the kingdom of God is going to look like and be like, and heaven, and what does it actually mean, very different than typical, we'll leave this planet and go to this ethereal place and be with God forever kind of thing. But his is very much the kingdom of God is here on earth. And he made a statement that really like struck me, and he said, everything we do here to honor God for God's glory, for his kingdom, that's what's going to last. Whether it's it's helping people, you're serving people, you're being the connector between people and Christ, or he said, if you're writing a book, if you're building a house, if you're writing a poem, if you're painting, if you're composing a song, like all of those things that we do for God's kingdom and to honor him, those are the things that will actually last and translate into the kingdom of God. And I just I don't know what that actually means or what that looks, but it really struck me that anything we're doing creatively on this side of eternity, his idea is that somehow it's going to carry over into like eternity. And it's, too much to try to explain. It just struck me, it got me thinking. And so it's like, I started thinking a lot more. It's just like the creative ability or talent or anything we have, it's not just mine. It's like, God, you've given me this ability. So I just want to do something to honor you with it. Whether there's a plan that I have to sell, give proceeds to, some of the charity or missions organizations that we support, which we do. I would do like a portion of or half of it would go towards this organization. And so that was another reason I did it. It's like, I want to be able to make money to be able to sow into these missions projects. Yeah. So that's one of the reasons why I do it. But now I'll do it because there's times where it's like, okay, God, somehow, some way, if there's any way you can fill this with your life, awesome. Somehow, I don't know. I think it's when it's not just out of the natural ability that we have, but out of that supernatural ability that God gives to us, out of our gifting. It's like, it's not just us that's deposited into a song we write or a painting or book we write, but there's actually the Spirit of God, if we have him living in us, gets released into that creative work too, because it's actually, he's the one that gives us that ability. I think we're most like God when we create, because he's a creator. And so I think there's that aspect of that. It's just somehow filling it. What I do, somehow, if there would be the Spirit of God on it, in it, in some way that would make people think about God, hunger for God, people that don't see it, there's somehow, for some reason, they would look at a piece and think, somehow it would stir up a spiritual hunger in them, if they've never had it before. Somehow, I don't know. Like sometimes that's what I pray when I do it. So I think it'd be fun to do a show sometime in a gallery, just because I love galleries. I like the cleanness of it. Yeah. And it's all white. And it's like, oh, it just looks so cool, all the paintings. There's no clutter around. I think it would be fun to do that. I think it would be great to be able to just, I love it when people love something as much as it's just like, I put a lot of effort and time in it when I really like something. I like it when, oh, you like it too? Awesome. I'm not the only one. Yes. So it's just, I'd like to keep doing it. I'd like to do it to be able to raise finance for whatever comes in from it, to be able to sow back into missions or different projects, things like that. So back into the kingdom of God, so back into the house of God. So that's what one of the main things why I started doing it. And I would like to keep it that way too. And I have to cover my costs, like my husband says. You're not charging enough.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah. So my Monica's art supplies category in our home budget is very much in the negative right now.
Oh no. So buy Monica's paintings.
So I'm like, whatever. Somebody else could take them and sell them for me. So, yeah. That's awesome. That's kind of where I'm going to go. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah.
I think that's about all the questions I had.
Okay.
So,
good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.